All right, welcome into How About Wow. It's another week here in North Texas. I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fans, G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 weekdays.
Never
and
not
joining me
funny.
now once again is your former Kentucky all-academic offensive lineman, Newbear. What is up, my buddy?
Yeah, I got some of the vintage stuff out today. I was going through the old L120 stuff, sending pics to the fellas. So always BBN, always repping.
Well, we did a full show Thursday night recapping a lot of the OTA news, but there is so much OTA news and a couple of breaking stories to get into, including George Pickens from the weekend says he's the one that forced the trade, not the Steelers, or maybe we'd say the Stillers, moving on from him. That's just a Texas preference, creeks or cricks. But I love this story, Newbear. Fairly entertaining. I'll get what he said here. He says, LMAO, I play for the Cowboys. Stop reminiscing, bro. He was chatting with a fan and said, and trying to justify the trade. Y'all just lost another good player to fake reports like this one. A fan replied telling the wide receiver that he was the problem in the relationship with Pittsburgh. Pickens replied saying, I forced, buddy. They were gladly keeping me. Have a nice day and a blessed one, my guy. How do you react to this story, Newbear?
Evil genius. When this started breaking, and you always have to quadruple check, right? Because there was already the since deleted, I think it even references in this article, the since deleted Instagram post, that fake account, AI, what have you. If this is true, and this is the role that he's now the villain. And I love this for him because he's now put himself in a position where there are no excuses. And he is no longer playing for a team that is allergic to offense. He is no longer playing for a team that has a quarterback carousel where there's more questions than answers. He is no longer playing for a team that is a shell of its former self and thinks it can keep doing business the same way. But he's also got nothing in the bank after this, right? He's playing for that second contract. And, oh, by the way, opposite him is a true wide receiver one. And they're you called it the buddy cop movie in the making. They're over there doing push-ups next to each other every time they drop the ball. They're competing about everything. And we've all had bad bosses. We've all worked at companies where, leadership, ownership, whatever it is, and you know what it's like coming into that building every day and how that wears on you. New lease on life. And the great thing about it is he might be the villain, for Pittsburgh. He might be the villain to Steelers fans. But that stuff doesn't have to follow him to Dallas in any way, shape, or form. He can just go there and play.
I appreciate that segue as well, because what this story means to me is he wasn't too much for Pittsburgh. While Mike Tomlin talked about how he needed to grow up, this wasn't Pittsburgh saying, wow, we got to get rid of George Pickens. At least with Pickens' narrative, this is him saying, you guys aren't good enough for me. And I think that should make the Cowboys fans more optimistic that he can make it work in Pittsburgh, right? Give us your thoughts down below in the comments. Please, we'd love it if you can like the video. That helps us grow. That hits the YouTube algorithm. We just got to play their game. So if you could help us play it better, that would be great. Do you want to build on that in any way, Newbear?
Well, I would build on what you just said. Help us play the YouTube game like George Pickens just played the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Let's go. Okay, next story here on How About Wow is a story we actually broke over the weekend, okay? Awesome. I was having a phone conversation with some sources, and I put it up on howboutwow.com. Please go read us there. But I think the point of the debate is, with so many people speculating that Donovan Wilson would be a June 1 cut, the Cowboys safety, according to my sources, he's here and they are surprised. They don't know where the talk of him being a post-June 1 cut and saving the Cowboys $7 million against the cap is. They like what he does for the dollar figure, which is stop the run than most of their other safeties and give you the splash plays that Matt Eberflus loves.
I mean, you and I were just talking before we hopped in here about what Eberflus did in Indianapolis. And the Chicago stuff's a little bit all over the place. And the Bears franchise, I mean, my whole family was from Chicago. And options. You want to talk about, what happens with any team controlled by one group over time and what they do or don't do with paying players or playing games. salary cap and beyond. But I mean, the Bears are as tortured as anyone, and he kind of gets painted into this goofy picture, and people forget how good he was and how good his defenses were in Indianapolis. And when you go back and you look at those teams, what we were just talking about, heading into the show today, is Pro Bowlers at every level, right? So I think that any of the talk is premature until we see what happens with these post-June 1 cuts, if they make another move, and then ultimately what this structure, these 11 guys working as a unit, as one, and how they come together. Because everything you just said about Wilson is true. And people think about guys like Troy Polamalu and have the argument with, Reed, Polamalu, like who's the greatest safety of all time. There's very few guys that are like Sean Taylor who literally everything, right? Typically, you're going to get a safety who's a hammer, right? And then a safety who's a cover guy. And every once in a while, you end up in, like, Baltimore has a unicorn who's 6'5" and who can run around and do a little bit of everything, right? But typically, you're going to have one of these guys. One of them's a hammer, one of them's a nail. And it's like, this guy is one of those things. Like, he is going to screw into the box, and he is going to screw up some offensive game plans.
One of the other things, I think those are fantastic points. Donovan Wilson is a game plan wrecker because he forces turnovers, but he's not controlled enough to do that without costing you in very significant ways. His coverage is horrible, but he can get you sacks. He can force fumbles. He's gotten interceptions. He can score touchdowns. And I want, to draw attention to the fact that while the Cowboys have significant needs, and $7 million in cap space could be a defensive tackle. It could be a veteran corner like some of these guys we've been talking about. But they would rather have the playmaking ability of Wilson. So on a team that needs players, for them to not trade in the chip of wild card playmaker for more solid type of veterans, I think it shows they have confidence he's going to bounce back significantly from 2023. And it also shows me they're committed to filling all the holes and not sacrificing playmaking type of talent. That's the kind of salary cap commitment we need to see between now and camp. We don't want to see them taking away players. We want to see them adding players and finding ways to get Donovan Wilson on the field without it costing you, so you can take advantage of his big plays.
Careful, you might be in danger of turning into an optimist, at least a realist, right? Where the pendulum might be swinging for you, boy.
It's swinging a little bit. I'm willing to see confidence. We found out, and I posted these videos on the How Bout Wow page, on the YouTube page. There was a couple of moments last week in the G-Bag Nation on 105 through the Fan. I realized I'm a lot more optimistic about Dak Prescott's ability to win a Super Bowl, and I'm a lot more optimistic about this roster overall than the majority of people out there. Fingers crossed that I'm right, I guess. Okay, here we go. Up next here on How Bout Wow, let's go to Kenneth Murray Jr. He is speaking to the media last week after an OTA practice. Does he have a shot in HE double hockey sticks of having a winning impact? I can't believe reporters had the cojones to go up and ask this guy about, can he help stop the run? His run defense grade was 35 last year. That was 185th out of 189 qualifying line.
It's been a problem here for a while. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you knew that, or that if they talked about that. What's going to be the difference? Why will the run be stopped this year? What's about this scheme, the players that's going to get it done?
Well, I think it's just taking a different approach. Obviously, it's a new staff coming in. And then, you got some new players. I think me personally, that's something that I take extremely personally. I think, when a team – rushes on you, and I think that's for the front seven. That's something that we have to take personally, and I think that's the mentality I'm gonna bring to it. It's just it's personal, man. It's some things about when they throw a touchdown on you, but when they just running it down your throat, that's just it's unacceptable. So I think for me being a backer, having that mentality, and then just the new staff coming in already emphasizing stopping the run, making sure everybody's on the detail. I think that's where it's going to come down to, just us being detailed with the approach and then the mentality aspect of it. Yeah, no worries.
What was your opinion, or what was the reputation that
Okay, so Kenneth Murray Jr. talking about stopping the run as one of the worst run defenders in all of the NFL. They make the trade for him a significant cap number, Newbear. I think the salary $7 million. I don't understand why they brought dude in.
Well, I mean, he's a pedigree guy, right? And something that Cowboys Nation might not know about him is he played with Baker, Kyler, and Hurts at Oklahoma. The dude lost more games his rookie season than he did in his whole college career. And you can make numbers, you can make data work for or against just about anybody. But what you're talking about is a 6'1" and change, 6'2" in cleats, 240-pound thumper who's pissed off. And he's taking this shit personally. And when you're talking about the middle of this defense and him and Sanborn and those guys playing off of each other, you talk about being pissed off for greatness, right? We're talking about greatness. We're not talking about the 7.5, Vegas conversation we had a few weeks ago now. The momentum is building. And if the pendulum's swinging for you, the pendulum's swinging for Cowboys Nation, that line is going to move. They start winning games. He's got to keep taking it personally, right?
Man, I really like that. I like that, Newbear. And I hope you're right. I do feel like, though, the counter would be speaking of the pedigree, the Cowboys evaluate guys in the draft and then still will believe what their grades say, and they believe the projection to be on the players 4 and 5 years later.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if that popped up here. And for a team that is so intensely focused on managing that salary cap, I can't live with mistakes like this. That's about 2.5% of the cap. We gave away to a guy because he was good in college. Until further notice, maybe I'm proven wrong. Scheme fit. I did hear Broadus talk about maybe if you take him out of middle linebacker, where maybe Sanborn's going to play, and put him at will, maybe he can run free, and his ability to diagnose and get to the right spot will be mitigated a little bit because it was just too much emphasized at middle linebacker.
One of the things that you're going to get into when I'm talking about data working for, again, like Sanborn on paper isn't a great athlete. Sanborn on paper isn't one of those dudes that you just go, wow, that's my middle linebacker when you look at the measurables. Kenneth Murray Jr. is more in that mold. And it's, again, going back to the levels of the defense and how these guys are going to play off of each other. When you think about knowing the system and understanding your role and your fit, this is the opposite of the Donovan Wilson conversation. Because if Donovan Wilson or a Deron Bland or some of these guys that are going to take data and the raw numbers, right? And when you look at this PFF grade or missed tackles or whatever the case may be, and you apply it to the team, there's some guys that you just got to know are going to be where they're supposed to 100 out of 100 times, right? And at the same time, have the ability to class up, level up, and wreck a game plan. He has those abilities when you look back at the pedigree stuff, and he's made plays, right? This is a guy, you look at some of the even Hall of Fame linebackers, right? Don't pick passes off or don't get home and sack the quarterback. And irrespective of the grades, when you just look at a guy affecting the game in all the different ways that he's going to be charged with, he has spent his career putting his face in the fan, hitting dudes in the mouth. He's picked off passes. He's gotten home. He's won at every level. And then when you combine that with maybe the love that you had for him, coming out of Oklahoma, and you go Eberflus plus our culture plus a fresh start, right? And he's got to live up to that contract. He's one of those guys that is going to have a big. Am I getting paid, and then am I taking a step back because I'm good now, or am I going to go out and show everybody that I'm worth every penny?
Man, that is terrific stuff here from Newbear. Absolutely on fire, dropping knowledge from Pittsburgh. We got to get you in North Texas soon, maybe out to Oxnard, California. You meet some of the guys. Okay, up next here on How Bout Wow, a guy that I do believe in a lot more now is Tyler Guyton. We played a little clip from you on the show last Thursday on YouTube, but, this interview got real good. Here we go.
It's awesome.
Last season.
Taking care of your body is important.
What about there's a lot of issues with the penalties and just the whole learning the NFL. How did you think you dealt with that?
Of course, there's going to be ebbs and flows, but I understand that, it already happened and it's in the past, and I'm going to move forward from it and learn from my mistakes.
Why did you feel like it was important for you to be first day?
Bro, just watch his face after he's saying this stuff. He like put his tongue on the side of his mouth. He's like, I got to be more important. And then he said this one. He's like, that's right, dude. I'm on a freaking mission to be a good left tackle. Listen to more.
I had a lot to prove. I had a lot to work on. I didn't do too good last season. I want to do better. I want to be the guy to be depended on.
How much of that was you were a college right tackle and you played left tackle, switched sides of the line? How much did that kind of impact your season, and how much more comfort do you have with that spot now?
I'm not going to make any excuses. I just didn't play as good as I needed to last year. I'm coming with a different attitude this year to become a better player.
Just killing it, one after another. More from Tyler Guyton.
There's always going to be learning, but I feel like I'm getting way more comfortable, with it now than I was at first.
What does it mean to have your coach unprompted call out how impressed he's been?
Yeah, I think we lost some audio quality in there, Newbear. I don't know about you, but I think that bomb might have blown up my headphones. Do I still got you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Well, I think the part where he said, I want to be a guy that can be depended on.
Yeah.
No excuses there. Incredible testimony for better nutrition as this thing goes on. And I do feel like we got a chance now that Tyler Guyton can be significantly better than he was as a rookie year, where he was actually half decent. There were some technique breakdowns in pass pro, and there were some penalties that kind of got him off the field in favor of a much inferior talent, Adoga. And that was a major red flag to me last year when you're talking about a swing tackle beating out your rookie first-round pick. But this pendulum might be swinging back the other way now pretty good.
Well, the word you just used there, swing. I mean, most guys, and like 97% of these dudes, they only play left-handed or right-handed, right? Most of these guys are not going back and forth. And in Pittsburgh did the same thing. They traded up to go get Broderick Jones, who was a left tackle, and then they moved him to right tackle to play Dan Moore Jr. Did Broderick Jones not play well? He got injured because you're using your body in the opposite form and fashion as a mirror, right? And what's really interesting about Guyton is the vulnerability. What's really interesting, you're pointing out the different things where, if you were a psychologist or behavioral analyst and you were looking at some of these things, like what is grinding your teeth, what is sticking your tongue in the corner of your mouth mean? But for him to flat out say, I wasn't good enough, for him to kind of admit some of these things that he's been getting raked over the coals for all over social media, go look at his NFL Combine picture. The dude's body from then to now, the dude's put in the work. Shoddy's talking about how he's busting his ass in the weight room and he's crushing it every day. There's evidence that you see that. And the biggest translation where you talk about penalties, right? Young players come from not knowing your responsibility, right? Because now you're thinking instead of just playing. And then being the Jimmy Johnson line, right? Fatigue makes cowards of us all. And when you're 6'8" and you're already going to be struggling to be a knee bender and you're questioning what you have to do, and you're tired while you're going through those machinations, and every dude that's lining up across from you is one of them dudes, that's going to add up to failure. And so now he's coming back in shape. He's coming back in, knowing exactly the role that he's going to play. And this culture of competition has ratcheted it's raised the stakes for everyone.
It really has, man. And this is a guy who's meeting the challenge now. What we'd heard a lot in the offseason was that benching was not only for performance, but the dude didn't know what it took to be a pro. Right. And they were wondering how hard does he work? How much is he locked in? They talked about in the build-up to the draft when they took Tyler Booker, we need to find guys that love football and, want to work at it and enthusiastic going about their jobs. He was skinny fat last year, which is sad, but now he is like a lean, incredible talent at offensive line. He just wasn't meant to put on muscle and fat and or weight and carry it well. And his bulk up from tight end to tackle did not go well. But this is something to be incredibly bullish about, Cowboys fans. Okay, congrats to Dak and the Prescott family for another baby. It's daughter number 2, so teen girl dad is definitely in full effect. There he is on his Instagram celebrating. And he's got some great pictures up here of him hanging out with them as well, if you want to peruse. But just cool, tremendous blessing. And of course, dadding up never hurts on the job performance. I know it kicked my ass. As soon as I became a dad, I was like, man, I got to do a better job
at everything,
yeah.
Right? Because that's the example. Every guy she dates or every game she plays, everything that it's going to be a direct result of, interactions. You're the first one in her life, and you've got 2, right?
Yeah.
And I've got 3, and I've got a boy in there somewhere too. And the joke was that we kind of ignored him, for a couple of years because I didn't want him to think I didn't want them to think I switched teams. I got this little left-handed strawberry blonde, future SEC quarterback. And I'm a girl dad times 3, and there's nothing like it. There is absolutely nothing like it.
I love it, buddy. Well, I love doing this show and this brand, howboutwow.com. You can follow all of our social medias there and catch up with all the things we have been writing. You want to put up a tease for some of the stuff you posted here over the weekend, Newbear?
Well, it's fun because the OTAs turned into OT answers. We start looking at position by position, sometimes part 1, part 2 with more to come, and really releasing that stuff and getting the shovel out and digging further and more over the summer. You've done an awesome job of breaking news and being hot off the press, working the sources, and then in between there's some deeper dives playing off of things that we're going to talk about here in the yard. So it's a fun little mix as we really just kind of get up and running and back and saying, more news and features arriving daily. And when we first started setting that message to followers, we were kind of like, yeah, soon it'll come. And now it's happening. So it's really cool to see. And it's been a lot of fun to do with you, man.
Hit the subscribe, hit that bell button. Until next time, how about wow?